I laughed when I saw her name on the guest list. Yejin Han, +2. I told my best man it had to be a mistake. She hadn't spoken to me in 6 years. Not since she packed one suitcase and left a note on my kitchen counter in Itaewon that said she was sorry and that I'd be better off. I wasn't better off. I was furious. For 6 years, I told anyone who asked that Yejin ran when things got hard, that she chose comfort over me. I said it so many times I started believing my own version. Now I stood at the altar of the Grace Hill Chapel in Seongbuk-dong, 300 guests deep, marrying into the Han shipping family. Seo-yeon's father owned 4 container ports. Her uncle, director Han Tae-sik, ran the boardroom like a courtroom. Then the doors opened. Yejin walked in wearing pale green. Not white, not black. Something in between, like she couldn't decide if she was mourning or celebrating. 2 boys flanked her, maybe 5 years old. Seo-yeon navy suits. Matching faces. My face, if I was being honest with myself, which I hadn't been in a long time. Who let her in? Seo-yeon whispered beside me, gripping her bouquet so tight the stems bent. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The boys broke away from Yejin's hands and ran up the aisle. 300 guests turned to watch. My mother gasped somewhere in the second row. One boy grabbed my leg. The other looked up at me with an expression I recognized because I'd worn it myself. In old photographs, at that exact age. "Dad," he said, plain, certain, like he'd practiced it in the car. I looked at Yejin. She didn't smile. She didn't cry either. She just stood at the end of the aisle with her hands folded, waiting, like she'd been rehearsing this moment longer than I'd been rehearsing my vows. "There's been a mistake," I said, loud enough for the front rows to hear. "I don't know these children." The words left my mouth before I checked them. Old habit. 6 years of telling myself a story where I was the wronged one, where Yejin was the villain, where I owed nobody an explanation. The boy holding my leg let go. He stepped back like I'd slapped him. "You said he'd know us," he said to his mother, quiet, confused. "You said he'd remember." That's when director Han Tae-sik stood up from the second row on the groom's side, which struck me as strange, because he was family on the bride's side, not mine. "Enough theater," he said. "Someone remove her before she embarrasses the Han name further." Yejin turned to him slowly. "You're the one who should be embarrassed, uncle." The room went silent enough that I heard the air conditioning hum. "Uncle," I repeated. My mouth had gone dry. "Your uncle?" Yejin nodded once. "My mother's brother. Half Korean, half Nigerian, and never registered in the Han family record, because he made sure of it. Just like he made sure I disappeared before the wedding of Han Seo-yeon, to a man he decided would inherit the Busan terminal contracts." Seo-yeon's face drained of color beside me. "Uncle, what is she talking about?" "Nothing," Han Tae-sik said. "A jealous woman with a story." "I have the wire transfer," Yejin said. She reached into her clutch and held up a folded paper, not handing it to anyone yet, just showing it existed. 80 million won, sent to my account 4 days after I told Desmond I was pregnant. The memo line says, "Resolve family matter quietly." I felt my knees lock. "You were pregnant when you left." "I was 7 weeks along," Yejin said, looking at me now instead of her uncle. "I found out the same week your restaurant partnership with the Han Group got approved. Your uncle came to see me 2 days later, Desmond. Not you. Him." I turned to Han Tae-sik. He straightened his tie, unbothered, the way men get when they've never once had to answer for anything in their lives. "She would have cost you everything," he said to me, flat, reasonable, like he was explaining a contract clause. "A pregnant ex-girlfriend, mixed children, no family registration, nothing to offer the Han name. I saved your career before you knew you needed saving." "You didn't save anything," I said. "You stole 6 years." The boy who'd let go of my leg was standing a few feet back now, holding his brother's hand, watching 2 grown men argue over what his uncle had once decided his life was worth. I crouched down to his level. My knees cracked against the marble floor and I didn't care. "What's your name?" I asked him. "Junho," he said, careful, testing whether I deserved the answer. "And your brother?" "Daniel." I looked past him at Yejin. "You gave him an English name. You always said if we had a son, you wanted him to have both," Yejin said. Her voice cracked on the last word, the first crack I'd heard since she walked in. I remembered. Even after everything, I stood back up. The room was still holding its breath, 300 people frozen between a wedding and something that no longer resembled one. "Seo-yeon," I said, turning to my bride. "I need 5 minutes." 5 minutes, Tae-sik cut in. "And then we finish this ceremony like adults. This isn't the venue for old business." "It's exactly the venue," I said. "You made sure of that yourself, didn't you?" "You put her name on the guest list." For the first time, Tae-sik didn't answer. "Before I keep going, I want to know where you're watching this from. Drop your city below and tell me what time it is where you are right now. I read every comment, and this one's about to get a lot heavier." I walked Yejin and the boys into the chapel's side room, the one meant for the bride to fix her makeup before the ceremony. Not for this. Junho and Daniel sat on a velvet bench, swinging their legs, too young to understand why the air in the room felt like it was made of glass. "Start from the beginning," I said. "All of it." Yejin sat across from me, hands folded in her lap, the folded wire transfer still pinched between 2 fingers, like she was afraid I'd deny it existed if she let go. "After you told me about the restaurant deal with the Han Group, I was happy for you," she said. "Then 2 days later I missed my period. I did the test in your bathroom because I didn't trust myself to look at it alone. You never told me. I was going to. That weekend. I had it planned. Then Tae-sik showed up at my apartment in Hongdae with a driver waiting outside and a folder under his arm. What was in the folder? Everything, she said. My immigration status renewal, which was still pending. My mother's medical bills from Lagos. A printout of your restaurant contract with a clause about reputational alignment, highlighted in yellow. I remembered that clause. My lawyer told me it was standard boilerplate. I hadn't read it closely enough to know it could be used as a leash. He told me if I stayed, if people found out I was pregnant with a mixed child registered nowhere, unmarried, half Nigerian, half Korean, myself and never entered into the family Hoju, it would look like the Han Group partnered with instability, Yejin said. His words, instability. Junho stopped swinging his legs. He was listening, I realized. 5 years old and listening to every word. He offered me 80 million won to disappear before you signed the final contract, Yejin continued. I said no, twice. Then he showed me the 3rd page of the folder. What was on it? A letter, already drafted, ready to send to my mother's clinic in Lagos, informing them her granddaughter's father, that's what he called you, before either boy was even born, was a chef under investigation for financial irregularities tied to a Han Group subsidiary. Fabricated, but convincing enough to freeze her medical visa sponsorship. My stomach dropped. He threatened your mother's health care. He said it wouldn't have to happen, not if I left quietly and let you believe I'd chosen money over you. I sat back. The room tilted slightly, or maybe that was just me. I told him I'd rather starve than take his money, Yejin said. He told me pride doesn't cover chemotherapy. I took the transfer. I used 40 million on my mother's treatment. The rest raised these two for 6 years in Incheon, in a 1-room apartment above a laundromat, while you were 3 train stops away thinking I'd run off rich. Daniel tugged her sleeve. Are we in trouble? No, love, Yejin said, and her voice went soft in a way I hadn't heard since the last time she said my name without anger in it. Nobody here is in trouble but the grown-ups. I looked at the boys. Junho had my mother's jawline. Daniel had my father's stubborn mouth, the one that showed up in every photo of every Coleman man going back 3 generations in Charleston. Why now? I asked. Why the wedding? If he made you disappear, why let you back in today of all days? Yejin's jaw tightened. Because Seo-yeon's father is retiring from the shipping board next spring. Tae-sik wants the Busan terminal contracts to pass through the family under his direct oversight before that happens. Your restaurant group is the last piece he needs. A clean, camera-friendly marriage between his niece and a rising chef with international press appeal. And me finding out about my sons ruins that. No, Yejin said. That's what I thought too at first. But I think he wanted you to find out today, publicly, where it's messy and fast and over, before the board meeting Monday. I frowned. That doesn't make sense. Why would he sabotage his own plan? Because if the wedding collapses today, In front of witnesses, over an old scandal involving me, Yejin said slowly, like she was working it out in real time. Then the story becomes about your instability, not his manipulation. He gets to cancel the merger, keep the Busan contracts under his sole control, and walk away looking like the family member who tried to warn everyone. I stood up so fast the velvet bench scraped against the floor. He's not protecting the family, I said. He's using both of us. Again. There was a knock at the door. Seo-yeon stood in the frame, still in her wedding dress. Mascara smudged at the corner of one eye where she'd pressed her palm against it and failed to stop something. I need to know one thing, she said to me, not looking at Yejin, not looking at the boys. Did you know about them? Before today, any of it? No, I said. I swear to you, no. She nodded slowly, absorbing that, and then her eyes moved to her uncle's folder logic the way mine had, connecting the same dots. My uncle picked out this venue, she said quietly. He picked the date. He insisted on inviting a few of your old associates from Itaewon. His words, when I asked why the guest list had names I didn't recognize. Seo-yeon. He set this up, she said, and her voice cracked down the middle. He set up my own wedding to fail. Behind her, out in the chapel, I heard Tae-sik's voice rising over the confused murmur of 300 guests, already spinning a version of events that didn't include 80 million won, or a threatened medical visa, or 6 years of a woman raising 2 boys alone above a laundromat in Incheon. He's talking to the guests, Seo-yeon said. Right now. Making you the villain before you even walk back out there. I looked at Junho and Daniel, at Yejin, at Seo-yeon standing in a dress that suddenly looked like a costume for a play none of us had agreed to be in. Then I guess it's time I walk back out there and tell them the truth instead, I said. I walked back into the chapel with Yejin beside me, Junho and Daniel each holding one of her hands, Seo-yeon a step behind us in her wedding dress, still standing there even though she had every reason to walk out the back. 300 guests went quiet again. Tae-sik stood near the altar, mid-sentence, something about unfortunate confusion dying on his lips when he saw the 4 of us walk in together instead of me walking out alone. Sit down, uncle, Seo-yeon said. Not loud, just final. He didn't sit. Seo-yeon, this is not the time. You picked the venue, she said. You picked the date. You invited people from his old neighborhood in Itaewon so they'd recognize her the second she walked in. You wanted this exact moment to happen, in front of everyone, so it would look like his mess instead of your plan. A murmur moved through the pews like wind through wheat. I have the wire transfer, Yejin said. And this time she didn't just hold the paper up. She walked it to the front and set it on the small table beside the unity candle, where every guest with a phone could photograph it if they wanted to. 80 million won. Memo line. Resolve family matter quietly. Sent from a Han Group subsidiary account 4 days after I told my daughter's father I was pregnant. Sons, Tae-sik said, grasping for anything. You said daughter. I said what would make you flinch, Yejin said. You didn't even remember which children you erased. That landed harder than anything else she'd said all day. I watched something in the guests' faces shift, watched 300 people do the math on a man they'd trusted with contracts worth more than most of their lifetimes combined. Here was the false calm. For one breath, it looked like it might just end there. Tae-sik exposed, the room satisfied, the truth simply sitting out in the open like the wire transfer on the table. Seo-yeon's father stood from the front row, face unreadable, and for a moment I thought maybe this was already over. Then Tae-sik laughed, short, sharp, and cold. Fine, he said. I moved money to protect this family's name. Guilty. But ask yourself something, Desmond. Ask the room. If she loved you the way she's performing right now, why did it take a wedding invitation and a room full of cameras for her to finally tell you the truth? 6 years, and this is the moment she chose. Not out of love, out of timing. The room's sympathy wavered. I felt it wave right along with them. That old 6-year story trying to crawl back into my chest and take root again. I turned to Junho. I crouched down, same as before, knees against marble. You said something earlier, I told him. In the side room. You said he'd remember. Junho nodded, quiet. Remember what? I asked. What did your mom tell you about me? before today. Junho looked up at Yejin, who gave him the smallest nod, permission. She said you used to sing to her belly in Korean, Junho said. Badly. She said you only knew one song and you sang it every night, so we'd know your voice before we were born. The room had gone dead silent again, but different this time. Not scandal silent. Something else. Because I remembered that song. It was the only Korean lullaby I'd ever learned, taught to me badly by my restaurant's line cook, a song about a rabbit on the moon, and I used to press my palm against Yejin's stomach every night for 3 weeks, before she disappeared, and sing it off-key until she laughed at me. I hadn't thought about that song in 6 years. I hadn't let myself. That's not timing, I said, standing back up, looking at Tae-sik now instead of the boys. That's not a woman who showed up for a payday or a headline. That's a woman who taught our sons a song I sang to them before they were even born, so that if this day ever came, I'd know it was true before I even saw the paperwork. I turned to the full room. I told these boys 20 minutes ago that I didn't know them, I said. That's the worst thing I've ever said out loud, and I'm not going to spend the rest of my life pretending I didn't say it. But I know the truth now. And the truth is that a man in this family decided 6 years ago that my sons and the woman who raised them were a liability to be managed instead of people to be honored. Seo-yeon stepped up beside me, unclipping something from her wrist, her grandmother's wedding bracelet, and set it gently on the table next to the wire transfer. I can't marry a man whose family tried to erase his children to close a shipping contract, she said, to the room, to her father, to her uncle, and I won't stand at an altar my uncle built specifically to hurt 3 people who never did anything to him except exist inconveniently. She turned to me. Go be their father, Desmond. You still can. I didn't marry Seo-yeon that day. I didn't marry anyone. I walked down that aisle in the opposite direction, Yejin on one side, Junho's hand in mine on the other, Daniel, riding on my shoulders because his legs had given out from all the standing. Tae-sik didn't survive the board meeting the following Monday. Seo-yeon's father saw the video circulating within hours, 300 phones in that chapel doing what 300 phones do, and pulled every contract his brother-in-law had touched in the last decade for review. I moved out of my apartment in Itaewon 2 months later, into a place in Incheon, close enough to the laundromat that Junho and Daniel could still walk to the corner store they knew, because I figured they'd already lost enough continuity in 5 years. I didn't need to take the rest. Some nights, when I put them to bed, I still sing that one Korean lullaby, still badly, still off-key. Junho tells me every time that I'm getting worse, not better. Daniel just falls asleep before the second verse, same as always. I used to think the worst thing that could happen to me was losing Yejin. I was wrong. The worst thing was almost losing 6 years I can never get back, standing at an altar built by a man who thought children were a liability instead of the whole entire point. If you're new here, this is exactly the kind of story I tell every week. Family secrets, second chances, the moments that split a life into before and after. Hit subscribe if this one got you, and tell me in the comments, would you have said, I don't know these children, or would you have known before they even opened their mouths?